Good morning. Thank you for choosing to spend your morning with us. Feel free to continue to get food. There's plenty out there. While I'm talking, you can hear me out there in the hall, I'm sure. Now I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me get started first by introducing the other people that are wearing these shirts this morning. Well, one of them that's not wearing the shirts is my wife. She always comes with me and graciously agrees to be our booth babe. So it really helps at show attendance. You met her at the registration desk. She's the only one not wearing these shirts. She's shaking her head because she doesn't like it when I do this. My longtime friend and business partner, Mike Cash, is here with us this morning. We've been partners in crime for a really long time. Joel Haythorne has also been with us for a long time, sneaking up on well, maybe I won't say how many years, reveal your age. Sneaking up on 30 years. Renee Gilroy is our new marketing director. She joined us this year, and she's getting a baptism in fire by doing her first ITSEC show. She's done a great job, and a lot of other things that I'm going to show you that she did this year. Jared Cox is here. Jared has been here before. He is a project leader. He's the project leader for the C2WS PTT. He's in the booth and can tell you about that. A first-time attendee at ITSEC is Corey Downing. He's been at Ternion for several years. He's a lead software developer at Ternion. Played a big role in some of the stuff that you're going to hear about this morning. And BK Stover is not a Ternion employee, but he's been a longtime friend and coworker for many years. He's here with some other people also on his team or that are related to us, our customer team. He's in our booth demonstrating the Command and Control Weapon System Park Pass Trainer, which is the embedded trainer for the U.S. Air Force Air Operations Center. So every Air Operations Center in the world has our training simulation in it, and it can do on-site training, and also every operator of the AOC gets trained using our simulation. So that's in our booth and able to be demonstrated. This morning I'm going to tell you about just a little bit about Ternion for those who maybe don't know anything about us and maybe here for the first time. I'm going to give you an overview of Flames. Again, for those who are maybe new, never have heard of Flames or not aware of its capabilities. And then I'm going to quickly change my attention to talk about the new things that we've added in Flames since the last time we were here, which for us was 2019. So it's been 3 years since we were here. As you all know, ITSEC was canceled in 2020. 2021, we made a decision not to come because we weren't sure attendance was really going to be all that great. And so this year, everybody seems to be coming back, and we're happy to be back. We're just thankful to the Lord that last couple of years are past. And then I'm going to tell you about a new option that we are adding to Flames. We're actually going to be able to have it demonstrated here. It's something that we're really excited about, so I'm going to give you an advance description of that, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what's at our booth in case you have a chance, if you haven't already, to come by and see us. We have been in business since 1989, so I was only 12 years old when we started this company, and it's been a fantastic career, a fantastic journey. And I can tell you, in the coming up on 34 years that I've been doing this, I'm old, so my memory isn't completely intact. But from what I can remember, there has never been a year that I have been more excited about the new features that we've added to Flames than this year. The things that we're doing to Flames, things that we have done to Flames, again, have me more excited. It's hard to believe that after all the years and all the great features that we've added to Flames, that here it is after over 30 years, we're now doing things that have us more excited than we've ever been. So I'm really excited about being able to tell you about this, and I'm grateful that you've come and come to listen to it. As you know, we developed this software product called Flames. That was the reason that we started the company back over 30 years ago, 33 and a half years ago, to start this, build a product that other people could use to build their simulations. And that's what we started the company for, and that's still what we do. That's still what we love, we focus on. We also have a services side of the company, and that side of the company builds custom flames-based simulations for other people. So some people buy Flames, build their own simulations, and that's what it's designed to do. Some other people come to us and say, we don't have our own software development team, but we like Flames. We would like a Flames-based simulation. Can you build the simulation for us? And so we get a contract to do the software development. We use in-house the exact same version of Flames that we sell to our customers. There's only one Flames. We're basically our own customers when we're using Flames and we're developing Flames-based simulation. So with that brief introduction to Ternion, let me switch now and give you an overview of Flames. For some of you I've seen here for many years. I appreciate you still coming back. This is all going to be old news, so you can take a nap for the next few minutes while I'm going through this part, but there's others that maybe don't know about Flames, so I want to make sure you get a chance to hear about it, because Flames is different from, I would say, most, if not everything that you're going to see here in Orlando this week, and pretty much everything you're going to see in the world, in my own totally humble and unbiased opinion. First of all, let me give you a little bit of introduction to the types of simulation. Again, this is not new to any of you, but some of you maybe haven't heard this before. There, in our world, in this world that we're immersed in here in Orlando at the ITSEC conference, there are three types of simulation from one point of view. One is called live simulation. So that's real humans using real equipment for purposes other than war. So if you're using a tank or an airplane or a gun or a weapon system for testing purposes, for training purposes, for any purpose other than actual combat, that's called live simulation. The next type of simulation is same real people doing hopefully something very similar to what they would be doing if they were using real equipment, but the equipment's fake. So that equipment is intended to look and act as much like a real piece of equipment as possible, so that the person using it is getting experience, hopefully that's relevant to the way they'd be using a real piece of equipment, but the equipment's fake. So there's a lot of virtual simulators out on the show floor this year, as there always are. That would be like a flight simulator, for example. So we try to make it look like a real cockpit. The controls try to make them act and behave, try to make the airplane behave like a real airplane, but it's not a real airplane. It's a fake airplane. It's a computer-generated airplane. So that's called a virtual simulation. And then there's constructive simulation, and in constructive simulation, there doesn't have to be any human involvement at all. Everything's on the computer. So the computer simulates all the humans, it simulates all the equipment. You can hit the button and just let it run, and it simulates a battle for you. Now, constructive simulations can be interactive, and a lot of interactive applications have been built for Flames. But if the person that's interacting with the simulation and controlling the players and telling them what to do, if they're doing it using an interface that doesn't look like a real system, then it wouldn't be considered a virtual simulation. So if you have, say, a mouse and a keyboard and you're clicking on things and playing with it, you're not really interacting with the simulation the same way you'd be using something in the real world. So that would just be considered an interactive constructive simulation. It wouldn't be considered virtual because the interface doesn't look like a real system. Flames, the reason I give this introduction is because Flames is not a framework for building real world equipment, of course. Flames is not a framework for building virtual simulators. Flames is a framework for building constructive simulations. But constructive simulations are very frequently used in concert with virtual simulators and live systems. We use Flames with live systems a lot. We do a lot of live training with Flames. So we have a bunch of interfaces built into Flames that lend itself, that allow Flames to be used very, very nicely with live systems and virtual systems. But Flames itself is a constructive simulation. So that gives you a little bit of a feel for where we fit in this world that we're in here this week. So why is it that we built Flames? What's the reason for it? Well, we use a little adage here that you've heard before: faster, better, cheaper. And as this applies to us, if you've been around, and I'm sure some of you have been around for a long time, you've used simulations, you've seen them develop, you maybe developed them yourselves, you know that it can take a really long time to build a simulation. One particular simulation that I'm familiar with, some of you may remember back in the 90s, a joint simulation program was started called JSIMS, the Joint Simulation System. They worked on that simulation for 10 years. And just to get its initial capability. So these simulations can take a really long time to develop. And they also, when you get them developed, if you've used a lot of the simulations, they're not always very easy to use. In fact, and they don't always meet our requirements. We live in a world where requirements are constantly being changing. So we need to continue to enhance these and adapt to new threats, to new scenarios, to new weapon systems and military systems that are out there, where all of our governments are always have R&D programs that are developing new systems. We have to upgrade our simulations to keep up with those. So, and a lot of times the simulations themselves are hard to use. They're old. We have a lot of old simulations out there written in old languages. They're not 64-bit architecture. They can't run big scenarios. They have a very clunky user interface. They're very hard to use. I heard of one simulation, one military simulation. It's actually in Huntsville, used by the Army. Somebody told me this. I don't know if it's true, but they said that it is so difficult to build a scenario in that simulation, a full-up scenario, that in its entire lifetime they've only built 2. And each scenario took 100 man-years to build. And that's why they've only built 2. So everything that if they have a particular scenario that fits that, they use that simulation just for that. But if they use it for anything else, they don't use it because it's just too hard to use. And so when you think, people a lot of times say, oh, we're going to use a government sim because it's free. Well, we all know that nothing's free. If you look, it might be free to the end user, but it wasn't free to the taxpayer in terms of how much time and money it took to develop it. And if you have a simulation that's not high quality, that doesn't have a good user interface, it doesn't have good documentation, it's certainly not free to use. So having a really good high quality simulation is really important. So that's why we built Flames, so that people can build simulations that have really polished user interface, great documentation, really easy to use, loaded with features right from the very beginning. And then of course cost. And that's a huge thing. This same simulation that I told you about, JSIMs, that took 10 years to develop, it's really not entirely true that it took 10 years to develop, because they never finished it. In 10 years, they still weren't finished with it, and after 10 years, the decision makers got impatient with them and they canceled it. So after 10 years of development, they canceled it, but not until $850 million was spent on it. If you're a U.S. citizen, that was yours and my money that got spent on that. They got absolutely nothing for it. So that's the worst example that I'm aware of. There's a lot of simulations out there that are really expensive. And one of the biggest costs of simulation is not the cost of the simulation itself, but it's the residual cost that results from not having the simulations that we need. Simulations take so much time and so much money to develop that there are a lot of people out there today, a lot of warfighting organizations, that don't have the simulations that they need because it's just too time consuming and too expensive to be able to develop it. And I would argue that that's the largest cost that we have, that we need more simulation capability than we have, and we're moving forward trying to defend our countries without the simulation capability that we need, because simulations take too much time and too much money to develop and to maintain. So that's why we built Flames, to allow people to build the simulations that are tailored exactly to their requirements, and build them faster, have them be better, and make them cheaper. So you probably heard you can choose faster, better, cheaper, pick any 2. I would say with Flames you get all 3. You can have faster, you can have better, you can have cheaper, and we've demonstrated that now for over 30 years for a lot of our customers. So what is Flames specifically? In a nutshell, it's very important to understand that Flames is not a simulation. People come up and ask us, how does Flames simulate this? Or can you simulate that? And my answer to that is always no, we can't simulate. Flames doesn't simulate anything. It doesn't have a single platform model in it, a single sensor model, a single human behavior algorithm. It has nothing in it. It is a model agnostic framework. It's a true framework. And that's one of the things that distinguishes it from most, if not everything, that you're going to see here in Orlando and you're going to see other places. It has no modeling capability whatsoever. It is a foundation for any type of simulation, constructor simulation that you might want to develop. And there's been over 100 different simulations that have been built on Flames, and many of them are still in use today, alive and well. The same exact foundation is used for all of those things. They're completely different simulations, but with all different kinds of modeling capability plugged in. But their framework, their foundation is Flames. What we call them is a Flames-based simulation. So it's not Flames that's doing all the modeling. It's a simulation that's based on Flames that's doing the modeling. They all use the same Flames framework, and that's what we call Flames. Flames is not a simulation. It's a framework for a simulation. So let me tell you a little bit more about what that means. So in a framework, the approach that we take, the framework includes, again, no modeling software whatsoever. So we like to call, in a simulation, because it's a computer simulation, you have software that is intended to model things that exist in the real world. The sensors, the platforms, the communication devices, the human behavior, command and control, electronic warfare devices, all those things. That software is outside of Flames. The Flames is what we call the infrastructure software. So that's the memory management, the user interface, the terrain database, the database where everything is stored, time management, object instantiation, interprocess communication, all the stuff that doesn't represent things in the real world, because in the real world you don't have to simulate that stuff. That's the infrastructure. And in a simulation, the infrastructure stuff can account for well over half the software development. And that, in fact, turns out to be the reason why so many of the U.S. government-owned simulations are so difficult to use, is because they spend so little time on the infrastructure. It's very hard to get the infrastructure correct. They spend all their time working on the modeling software. They know they need to have a simulation that models this particular airplane or this particular weapon system. They put all their energy into modeling that, and the architecture is very weak and not very capable, and it makes the simulation overall very difficult to use and very difficult to maintain. So we put all of our energy into the infrastructure to give you a framework that makes it easy for you to develop your models any way you want. So when you start out with Flames, you get more than half of the software that you need for your simulation immediately. Fully tested, fully documented, very reliable, very polished. It's been in use around the world for over 30 years. All that comes to you right when you start. In addition, Flames provides the interface that you need to be able to plug your own models into the infrastructure. So I'll give you an analogy. In your computers, there's a motherboard, and Flames would be like the motherboard of the computer, the core of the computer, but a lot of the functionality of the computer plugs into the motherboard. You've got your hard drives and your network cards and your memory, and all those things plug into the motherboard. Well, one of the really special things about motherboards is they have all these slots. Without all those slots on the motherboard, you wouldn't be able to plug all that stuff in. And those slots have matured over the years so that you can plug in all kinds of different things and get on the website and click, I want one of these and one of these and one of these, and in a couple of days they can plug in everything that you need. When you get it home, if you want to add something more, you can open up the cover yourself and plug something else in. Those slots on the motherboard are really the magic that has allowed computers to be what they are today. Flames provides those slots in software form to be able to plug stuff in. And that's really the magic of Flames, how to be able to plug stuff in. And it's the models that you plug in, the models of your platforms and your weapon systems and all those kinds of things. And so that's the stuff that's outside of Flames. And you create a different simulation just by building different models. And the architecture for the models is very religiously object-oriented, and we have the whole class hierarchy already figured out. So when you build a model for Flames, we also help you in your model development and make you more productive at developing models. And I'll tell you more about the things that Flames provides in future slides. So typical simulations are like this. They're 100% unique code. There's this simulation over here, it's got its code and other ones, and they don't share code, they don't have a common infrastructure, they're all standalone, and every time you build a simulation, you have to build it all over again. And a lot of that functionality in those simulations is duplicated. They all have some kind of user interface, they'll have some kind of way of storing their data, they'll have some kind of way of managing memory and managing time, and that's all duplicated in all those simulations. And it usually isn't very good. In Flames, this is how simulations are built. Flames provides the core foundation for everything, and it's just the stuff that plugs in that provides the unique capability. So you have much less software to develop, and you have a well-defined architecture to use to develop that software, and that results in faster, better, cheaper. So people use the word framework. If you go out on the show floor today, or if you go around the world, you're going to see people calling themselves frameworks, and there are certainly different definitions for the word framework. So I don't own the patent on the word framework, so my particular use of the word is not the only word. But if you look in computer science literature and you read about it, our definition of framework is more consistent with what the experts say is a true framework. And I want to tell you just a few things on how to distinguish between a true framework and other types of simulations. So again, you'll find other people out on the show floor that say they're frameworks. I would contend that at least in the way that we say we're a framework, they're not really frameworks. And I would say out on the show floor, and I guess I'm pointing there it is over that way, we're the only true simulation framework that exists out there. And here's some of the ways that you can understand that. One of them is we built Flames from the very beginning to be a framework. The other products that call themselves frameworks are built to be point designs, just fixed simulations, and then along the way they said, oh, our customers would like some way to customize it, so they exposed an API to be able to make some customization. A fixed, customizable application is dramatically different from a true framework. So we built Flames from the core, from the very beginning. We started the company to build a tool that other people can use to build their own simulations, build their own models. And what that means is specifically, we design it to be model independent. So there is no modeling in Flames. Flames is completely separate, and I've told you about that already. So you can take the models and completely separate them from Flames. And that's the first true mark of a framework. Go talk to these other people that say they're a framework and say, can you take the models out of your code? Is it already separate? And for us, the models are all actually in separate DLLs. They're not even linked into the same application. Ask them if they have all their models separate place on their disk separately. Can you pull the models out and still run the framework? If it doesn't depend on the models, it's totally independent, you ought to still be able to run it. Flames, you can crank it up with no models in it at all. You can create scenarios. The only thing you can do for the players in the scenarios is give them a name. But you can create 1,000 players and give them all unique names because all the functionality of the players comes from the models that are attached to it. But you can start up Flames, you can build a scenario, you can run it. It doesn't need any models at all. It's completely independent. And then another little acid test is, hey, by the way, can I have the source code to all your models? And just look at their facial expression, look at their nonverbal communication when you ask them that question. The answer to that is going to be likely no, that the source code is not available because they'd be giving away the source code of their product if they were doing that because the modeling software is intimately integrated. Ask them how many completely different simulations have been built based on their framework. Can you pull all the models out, put a whole other set of models in, and build something completely different? Again, I would contend that we're the only people out there that can do that. And so why is that important? It's important because of the slide that I showed you previously, that you can have totally different simulations, your simulations designed to your specifications that do what you want them to do based on this common framework. And all these simulations can all share that common framework. And so that's why it's important. Now, I can tell you there are a lot of great products out there. Just because they're not frameworks doesn't mean they're not great products. In fact, you may not need a framework. If you find an existing simulation not on the show floor or somewhere else that meets your requirements off the shelf, I would say buy it. It's almost always better to buy than it is to build. Build is still more costly than buying in general. So if there's a simulation out there, you find something here this week, or you may already be using it, and it meets your requirements, it does what you want to do off the shelf, buy it and use it. And there are great products out there that do lots of different things. But in our industry, there are so many unique requirements. It's impossible to build just one simulation that's going to be able to do everything that everybody wants to do. And in fact, those other companies that have these fixed simulations out there, they make more money than we do today. But they have a tiny little percent of the simulation marketplace because there's a very small percentage of the marketplace that they can satisfy the requirements for. Because everybody's requirements are so different. And not only are they different, they're constantly changing, as we've talked about before. So if you need the flexibility to build exactly what you want and then update it as your requirements change, then you need a framework. So that's why we built Flames. So there's the overview. Let me switch gears now and start telling you about what we've been doing for the last 3 years with Flames. We've been doing a lot of exciting stuff, and I'm only going to tell you just about a couple of the features that we've implemented, because I don't really have time to tell you about everything. But there's one particular new option, it's actually an existing option to Flames, that we enhanced with pretty significant capability. You may not need it, but I just want to tell you about it. For those of you who know about Flames, we have a very powerful scenario database manager implemented in Flames. We built it custom for Flames. Managing large amounts of scenario data is one of the hardest things associated with editing scenarios. And we worked really hard to make sure that we have a database manager that supports managing data. One of the key features of it is that we store all of our scenario data in separate files. We call them data sets, but ultimately behind the scenes, they're just individual files. So a given scenario is not just one big file. If you have that, it's almost impossible to provide any management capability. If you want another scenario, you got to copy the entire file over, you make changes to that, make another scenario, copy that, and then if you want to get the changes you made in the third scenario back into the first one, well, you're kind of hung. You have to go back and sort of manually type them in through the user interface, or if you have a database system or a scenario system that has flat files you have to edit with a text editor, which, by the way, to us is anathema. We don't have any text files that you edit by hand. We have a graphical user interface for editing everything. Ask other people out there if they have a user interface for editing all their parameter data, all of it. But we break it up into separate pieces. We have files for sensors, files for platforms, files for units, files for teams. Break it all up so that, for this reason, so that we can have scenario data that gets shared among multiple scenarios. So typically, we'll have a common set of data sets that are used by a whole family of scenarios. And we don't have, and if we make a change to that, every scenario that uses those data sets gets automatically updated with the latest data. And that makes a huge difference, being able to share data among different scenarios. So what we worked on was not, we've always had that in Flames. That's been around from the very beginning. We had to solve that problem right at the very beginning. But what we added this year was how to address when you have multiple people editing those same scenarios simultaneously. We've always had a way to do that, but it was limited. All we did was do file write locking so that people couldn't overwrite their changes. But it's still possible, at least not write to the file at the same time, so they wouldn't corrupt the file. But it was still possible for two people to be editing the scenario and have them, one person save and another person make a change, and then they save, and then it would overwrite the changes that the first person made. What we added in this particular version of Flames is true collaborative database editing. So when two people are editing a scenario that have the same data set, if somebody makes a change to the data set, that change is immediately communicated in real time over to the other user. So if you drag a player to another position, on everybody else who's editing that scenario, that player moves immediately. So it's true collaborative database, and it's not done at a file level, it's done at an individual entity level. So we lock and share data at the individual entity level. For a lot of people, they don't need this, but for large teams, Flames is designed to do the largest scenarios in the world. We can simulate over 1 million players in Flames in real time. It's a big system for solving big problems. And that sometimes means you have multiple people that are in teams editing a scenario, and this particular feature is particularly useful. So that was released actually 2019. Now I'm going to switch gears now just to talk to you about some of the things we've done this year, the stuff that I mentioned earlier that I'm really excited about. The first thing we did is we reorganized our overall product family. So Flames is a product of families, a family of products. It has a lot of different tools, a lot of different things that go into it, and that's collectively referred to as Flames. So Flames is not a specific application. It's got a scenario editor, a scenario execution tool, a scenario visualization. It's got software development tools that all come together in this set of products that we call Flames. Well, we grouped those into two groups previously. We called one the development suite. And this was the part of Flames that you got if you were going to be developing your own software. So it's not scenario development, this is software development. So if you want to build those models on the outside that simulate your systems, this is what you would get, the development suite. And then once you built the simulation and you're ready to run it, you use the runtime suite to actually be able to run it. So you build a DLL with your model, and then you run our scenario editor, which is part of the runtime suite, that would automatically integrate your new models in your DLL and let you use them to create your scenarios, to do your scenario editing. So we have the Flames development suite and the Flames runtime suite. Well, we've renamed and repackaged those two products. They're very similar, but now we call them the Flames developer. And what was the runtime suite is now called the Flames developer, and what was that was the development suite, the runtime suite is now called the Flames engine. So let me tell you about how these two new product groupings are different. They're more than just a name change. The first big thing about Flames developer is that it's free. So for those of you who've used Flames before, you know that the Flames developer, that was the really cool part of the product that was the main reason we built it, to let people build Flames-based simulations. That was pretty pricey. And then the runtimes were much less expensive. And what we've done with this version is we have made the developer free. And so that's the big thing. And all the options, Flames has a lot of different options. They were available in runtime form and in development form. All the development options are also free. So everything that you need to develop any kind of Flames simulation with all the options is now available for free. And I'll tell you a little story behind this. We looked at one particular company in this last year, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our relationship with this company. But they're a gaming company, and they give away their development software for free. And they're very, very successful. We formed a relationship with this company this past year and a half, and we looked at how successful they are, and the company is Epic Games, and their product is Unreal Engine, and you see it out on the show floor. It's being used now in a lot of simulation applications. And we talked to them and said, well, what prompted you to make Unreal Engine free? And they said, it was just like 6 or 7 years ago. It wasn't free. It was just like we had. It was a very expensive product, and there were only a few of the big game companies that could afford it and that were using it to build games. And they said, we're just not penetrating the market enough. There aren't enough games out there that are based on this product. And as you know, Unreal Engine is a true framework. It would be another product. It's not a simulation, it's a gaming system, but it is designed along the same principles that we have. It's a true framework. It is independent of any particular game that you build. You can plug in software that represents all your models. So we looked and said, they have a product just like ours in a different industry. They're trying to do the same thing we're trying to do. They're trying to provide a platform, a framework for people to use to build custom games. So what are they doing? And they said, well, we weren't getting enough games built on our product, so we said we're going to take the bold step and we're going to make it free. And if you know anything about them, they're a multi-billion, they're a 2-digit billion-dollar company, and the Unreal Engine is just taken off. So we decided that we're going to try the same thing. We are not getting enough simulations out there based on Flames. We're going to do the same thing that they did, and hopefully get some of the same results. So again, everything that used to cost a lot of money is now available for free. The engine is very similar, but one of the things that we've done with the engine is we've taken our most popular options, and that was the 3D capability, the multi-threaded execution capability, and the interactive simulation capability, and we've just bundled them with what is now called the Flames engine, what was the Flames runtime suite. So that's included with it. And the price is pretty much the same as what it used to be for those products. So we haven't really raised the runtime price beyond what it was. We made the developer free, but the runtime's pretty much the same. We've also introduced something that we call the trial version of the engine. So if we give you a free development system, but you can't run it without buying a runtime, you really don't have a free development system. So we said, well, we got to give you a free runtime also, so that when you're developing software, you can develop it and test it and make sure it works without having to pay for a runtime. So we now have a trial version of the runtime that you can use for evaluating Flame's capability and also be able to use it to test whatever software development you're doing. So if you have the Flames developer on your computer and you're developing software, and then you want to run the simulation to test your software to see if it works, you don't have to pay it for anything. There is no time limit. It's not a trial version in the sense that it's a limited time. It's available for as long as you have the Flames developer. The place where it's limited is in capacity. If you're only using it for testing purposes, you don't need to be running big scenarios, so you can only create 10 players in the scenario, and your scenarios can only last for 5 minutes. So it's enough to be able to test your development. When you want to start using it for actual production purposes, then you need to buy a Flames engine, a runtime license. But until that point, you don't need to. And you only need to buy that runtime for the people who are actually using it for actual serious simulation. All your developers can keep having this trial version and do all their testing and of their development with the free trial version. So we had several different options with Flames, and those options are all still there. So we have enhanced analysis option, we have checkpoint restart, the ability to save the complete state of a simulation, a scenario, and then if something happens, like you have a hard drive crash or something like that, go back and start the simulation over again. For our training simulations that are using exercises that last multiple days, everybody has that option. That is just a lifesaver. And there are some other options. I already told you about the network database option. That's what provides collaborative stuff. And we have DISN HLA interfaces that are built into Flames. They're customizable, so you get that off the shelf. There's a new option that we added in the last couple of years, and there's a lot of image generators out there that don't use DISN HLA to communicate with them. They have what's called a SIGI interface. And so we built a SIGI interface for Flames. So if you've got a third party off the shelf or even homegrown image generator, we have a built-in interface for that. So that's available. And then we have a new option that I'm going to tell you about later that we're super excited about. So before that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about other things that we've done. And this is the first thing that I'm just beside myself with excitement. It's just, we're just so excited about this. Not only was the cost of Flames Developer, in our opinion, our assessment of things, a barrier to entry for people to get it and use it, but Flames, just like Unreal Engine, if you've used that, Flames is a big, very complicated system. It's very, very capable. It has features and capabilities that are just tremendous. And the learning curve on just getting it installed and getting it set up to be able to use it, to be able to do development, is rather steep. And we look back and say we really haven't done enough to help people get up on that learning curve. We had a training class, and you could come, and that was real helpful, but a lot of people don't have the budget to come to the training class, so they don't have the time to come to it. So we said, if we're going to have a free developer, but we don't teach people how to use it and don't make it easier for them to use, then it's really, the fact that it's free doesn't make as much difference as it would be if we had resources available to get them up to speed on it. So we felt like we need to put a lot of energy into a whole different way of installing and using and developing for Flames. And so that's what we did, and that's what the majority of our effort, or a lot of our effort this past year has been on, just developing this whole new paradigm for how Flames is installed and used. And it starts with a brand new website. So we've taken the existing Ternion.com website, we kept it, but we pulled a lot of stuff out of it, and Ternion.com now focuses on our custom software development capability. And so there's a lot to say there, and it's focused just on that. We have the Flames Framework website now that focuses just on the product, just on people who are going to buy Flames for the purpose that we developed it for, to build their own simulations. That's what this site focuses on. So a lot more information, organized, a lot better, a lot easier to find things. We then built an online store. So now when you want to buy Flames, you get onto our store, you click on it, you add it to your cart, you say checkout, and boom, you have it. You don't have to contact us at all. The stuff that's free, you don't have to enter a credit card information. It's immediately available. If you have to pay for it, you can pay for it right online. And it's all done. The whole purpose of this is to be able to get completely up and running without having to contact Ternion at all. So I don't know about you, but I'm a software developer. I'm a mechanical engineer by education, and I love software development. My favorite thing to do is still to write software. And when I go out and I'm searching for something, I tend to gravitate towards those things that are free. I'm looking first for a free solution. And then what I want to do is I want to find download now. That's what I want. And I want to be able to put it on my computer, and I want to try it out without having to call a salesperson and get a quote and do all that stuff. If I have to have that, I oftentimes will pass it up and I'll go to the next product that has the download now button. So that's what we decided we need to do for Flames. We've never done that before. It was a massive undertaking to be able to do that. The store development was huge, software development activity. And what I'm about to tell you about was even larger development activity. But it was all in the interest of, you find Flames, you download now, you get it without having to contact Ternion. It's all there. There's a lot of stuff in the store. There's the products themselves, of course, and all of our options available. You can get the trial versions as well as the paid versions. So if you decide you want to use it for production, you don't have to go back to us. You can go right in the store. You can still order through a purchase order if you want to. One of the options in the store is say, well, give me a quote. I'll put this stuff in my cart, and then I need a quote because your organization maybe doesn't let you buy online, but you need a paper quote or a PDF, and so you can get that, turn it over to your purchasing organization, and they can turn the crank from there. In the store, there's also not node-like licenses, but we also introduced floating licenses. So you can choose which license you want in the store. Floating license means that on a given computer network, you can have a quantity of licenses, and then anybody on the network can use that license. It's a number of simultaneous concurrent users. So if you've got a team of 15 people and you want them to be able to use Flames sometimes, up until this point you had to put Flames only on specific computers, and only the people that had access to those computers could use it. So now you can buy 2 licenses or 3 licenses, put them out there floating, and then everybody on your network, without having to create new license files and without having to set stuff up differently, they can all be able to access Flames. We also have content. So Flames used to come bundled with it, it had some example scenarios and some example models. Nothing comes with Flames anymore. It has no scenarios, no models at all. It all comes now from the store. So if I say I want my starter content, I want the disk content, those content comes with documentation, it comes with the DLLs that go with it, it comes with the scenarios that go with it. So it's all available in the store. You can see all the different content, click on what you want. All the content is all free, so you get to choose what you want from the content. And so that's all in the store as well. And then we also revamped our documentation. People compliment us on our documentation. It is very, very extensive. I think it's second to none, particularly in the simulation space. We put a lot of energy in the documentation. If we just get people to read it, then it would really be nice, but we updated it, reformatted it. It's now available in a totally different form. It's able to be viewed in a web browser. It's much easier to get at. The next big thing that we did is we introduced this concept of a launcher. And we learned this also from the gaming community. And I've got a bunch of 20 to 30-year-old people working for me at Ternion. Many of them are gamers. If I ask them that, it's not do you play games, it's how many hours a week do you play games. That's the real question. And they all are used to this application called the launcher. Practically every gaming company deploys their software with the launcher. It's a free download program that you install. Then you buy all your game parts from it. You install all your game parts through it. You run all the games through the launcher. And everybody's used to doing that. And up until this about 18 months ago, I didn't even know launchers existed. I don't play games. I don't know how all that works. But when I started working, particularly with Unreal Engine, I installed Unreal Engine on my computer. I started using it. I said, this launcher thing is really cool. It really makes installing and running stuff really easy. And then we all said, we need a launcher. that's the ticket. That's how we're going to make Flames easy to use. That's how we're going to make it easy to install. We need a launcher. So we looked at the other gaming companies. I got a chance to talk to all my employees. You guys know about launcher? Oh yeah, everybody uses launcher. We know about launchers. It's like, why didn't you tell me? How come everybody? So I got them together. They all gave me good ideas about what features they like from launchers that they use and which ones they don't like. And we designed a launcher that we felt was the best of what we'd seen in the world, but tailored specifically to our particular product. There's certain features that our launcher has that other launchers don't have. And for example, one of them is we have to build this whole system so that you can run the launcher and run Flames on a machine that's not connected to the internet. Most of our customers run in labs that have networks that are not online. So most launchers you have to be online to be able to use them. Ours you don't. You have to be online to download stuff, but then you can copy it over to the machine that's inside the lab, and you can run it and use the launcher when you're not connected to the internet. So that's one of the features, for example, that we have that other launchers don't have. The launcher has the exact same Flame store, and it's really cool. Epic launcher, Unreal Engine launcher has this, and we said, we got to have that. So if you're in the store, in the website, and you add it to the cart, and then you go to the launcher and you pull the cart up, it's in the launcher's cart immediately. So we share the same database servers behind the scenes. So you can buy from the launcher as well. You don't have to get on the store. If you want to check out, we don't accept credit card payments through the launcher. So if you purchase something that you have to pay for, it redirects you to the Flame store where we have a secure online payment processing that we use a third-party system for to make sure it's real secure. But the launcher store interface is the same as it is on the website. And then, this is also what's really cool, and this is probably the biggest thing, is downloading and installing Flames on your computer. It's all done through the launcher. So you don't get an email from us with how to download stuff and how to run installs. It's all done transparently. Getting the license file that you need for Flames, that's done behind the scenes automatically by the launcher. So within minutes, with just a few mouse clicks, you can get the launcher installed on your computer, get Flames Developer, get some content, install that on your computer, click a few more clicks, and you go to this page, which is the project page, and you create a Flames project, you install the content in that project, and now you've got an interface for running all the Flames applications all right within the launcher. It just takes just a few minutes, and you're up and running with Flames. And again, you get to do all that with the free trial version, all for free. And that's what I want. Like I told you, as a software developer, when I'm going to the internet, that's what I'm looking for. Is I'm looking for something that I can just right now. I've got a few minutes. I want to do some research on this. I want to try to find some software that could solve my problem. Just a few minutes. Flames is running on your computer. You can start running. All the documentation is right there on the computer. And you've got all that you need. If you want to do software development, we had source code that came along with Flames, but I look back on this and think, how in the world did we miss this? All these years, we had all this software that came along with Flames, but we never really taught somebody how to build a software development project with Flames and how to get it all set up. We had some tutorials in our documentation, and we went over those in our training class, but they didn't ever go all the way to show people how to build a big custom simulation based on Flames the way that we do it at Ternion. As I told you, we have our engineering services side of the house that is building custom Flames-based simulations for other people, and we have this directory structure and everything all set up, and we use it on every project. And we look back at that and say, we've never, I can say never, but we don't in our documentation tell people how to set all this up. The way that we do it every day, we don't explain people how to do this. And it's hard to set up. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of files got to be in all the right places and everything. So we said we don't want to explain to people how to do it. We want it to be done automatically. So the launcher does that. It not only sets it up for runtime environment, but it sets up your software development environment. It creates a Visual Studio solution for you. You can start Visual Studio from within the launcher. It does so much of the setup process. And as a part of that, the source code now that for all of the content that we have, and there's a lot of source code that we give you, so you not only get the framework, but you get a lot of already built models that are ready for you to begin your custom development. All that source code is now in the GitHub repositories. So in the launcher, you can use your GitHub account and link that GitHub account to your Flames accounts, and that will automatically make you a member of the Flames Framework GitHub organization. It'll give you access to our source code repositories. When you go through, you use GitHub tools to be able to pull down the repository, but we tell you, you put it in this folder right here, and it comes not only with the source code, but it comes with the Visual Studio project, already fully assembled. So then you go into Visual Studio and you add that project to your solution. You hit build, you have your DLL. It's just that fast. We've never, ever explained to anybody how to do that. And now it's all pretty much automatic with the launcher. So lots of source code in there. We've added a whole new suite of models that are designed specifically for new people with Flames. They're very simple, but there's one of every type of Flames model pretty much. And we're developing all new training capability to be able to use those models, to be able to teach people how to use it. Which brings me to the next thing. We are creating a whole new set of online training classes. So we're not finished with that yet. We decided to go ahead and come to ITSEC and release Flames without this. But if you keep going back there, you'll see more and more, not only for how to use Flames, but how to develop with Flames. Way more information that we ever able to cover in a week-long training class at Ternion. So now you have automatically set up in your computer and then a whole suite of videos that will walk you through step by step on how to do all of the things you need to do with Flames. And so, like I said, what we said before, a totally different paradigm. This system that we have that we think is incredible, we're now making it usable for end users and usable for developers. Teach them how to use this massive beast full of capability to be productive building and running their own simulations. Last piece of that is an online forum. Everybody always has a forum. So we have a forum now, custom set up for Flames, so it's a place where people are going to be able to start sharing information. It's brand new. All this stuff is brand new. So if you go to the forum right now, it's empty. There's nothing in it. So get on it, start putting some stuff in there, start asking your questions. We're going to respond to the questions that go in there. And we're going to get that populated so that it will be a resource for people. And we hope to create a community of Flames developers that much like other like Epic Games. Epic Games has a repository for Unreal Engine. You know, that repository has been forked over 450,000 times. The Epic Games community is huge. And it all started, it didn't exist until they made Unreal Engine free. And they've got truckload. Unreal Engine is every bit as hard to use as Flames. If not, I'd say hard to use, complicated. It is so full of capability. In fact, I'd say it's a lot more complicated. In fact, that was the thing that struck me. I said, I put it on my machine. I'm a software developer. I'm a hands-on guy. Went through the tutorials. I want to understand how this thing works. So this thing's complicated, and there's a lot you have to learn. And how is it that they have attracted so many developers that use this thing when there's this huge learning curve? And as complicated as Flames is, the learning curve is not as hard for Flames. It's not as hard to figure out how to use it. Unreal Engine is. And yet, how did they do it? And how they did it was with all the stuff I'm just talking about. They have online stuff. They have repositories. They have a community for people to share information. They have tremendous, just wonderful training videos. I look at all this, well, we don't have any of that. That's the big discriminator right there. So that's what we worked on. And the last piece of that, again, is this community. I've been talking about Epic Games and about Unreal Engine, and the reason it is that we got involved with them is because we now have an Unreal Engine option for Flames. So we were pumped, very excited, and you can guess why now based on what I'm telling you. We think that the launcher and the online store and the forum and the training and the repositories is going to just dramatically improve increase the number of people that are going to be using Flames. So in your organization, instead of having just one person that's using the machine that has developer because you could only afford one developer license, you can put Flames development license on everybody in your organization. They could all be doing development. We want everybody to learn how to do Flames development. So we hope that we're going to mushroom too, and that we're going to have, I'll settle for half of 450,000. 220 would be fine with me. But hopefully we'll be there someday. We'll see people pulling down our repositories and doing suggestions to make the code in our repositories better. We never had any mechanism in place for people to, I'm digressing a little bit, but if people wanted to make a change and an improvement to our source code, there was no mechanism in place for them to be able to do that, to submit that change back to us. Git is used for that purpose, and now that we're using that, people can make suggestions and our models can get better. So we learned a lot of this from our exposure, as I've already mentioned several times, with Epic Games. And the way that this happened, a little bit of a story, a Marine Corps colonel who used to work in modeling simulation area. In fact, he was a program manager for PM training systems here in Orlando. We got to know him. He really liked Flames. He was a proponent for us. He introduced us to other places in the Marine Corps. My wife, I tell a little story, I come back and say, she said, how'd the presentation go? I said, oh, they were really sharp. It was a great audience. And they were really sharp, with synonymous meant that they liked Flames. You know, so this guy was really sharp. He likes Flames. And so when he retired, he's a consultant now in this industry, and one of the organizations he consults for is Epic Games. He's helping Epic Games get exposure and penetration into the military simulation market. And you'll see there's a lot of people on the show floor that are using Unreal Engine. So this Marine Corps colonel, retired colonel, said, I need to introduce you to some people at Epic. They need to know about what you have and how well Unreal Engine will fit and how big of a contribution it will make to getting Unreal Engine adopted in the simulation market if they can team up with Ternion. So he introduced us to us. They heard about what we had, and they got the terminology that their manager said is, I'm super excited about this. So they got excited about it, and they basically, we looked at Unreal Engine and said, yes, this is something that we want to do someday. It's going to be a big effort to integrate into Flames, and we want to do this someday. I'll never forget the day their senior guy in that department called my cell phone up and said, Brad, I've got some good news for you. We have found a way. And when they were really pushing us hard, we really want you to do this. This is just a great thing for us. It would be a great thing for your project, a great thing for us. We really want you to do this. They were trying to get us to do it this year, to do it simultaneously with the launch of our free developer. And I said, well, if you really want to do this, show us the money. That's the way we can get it done. We don't have the resources right now. Give us some money to be able to do this. And they did one better. They got one of their partner organizations that is already an expert in Unreal Engine. They gave them the money, and their statement of work was, do whatever Ternion tells you to do to be able to help them integrate Unreal Engine into Flames. So that was even better than giving us. It was a significant amount of money. It wasn't just 10 or 15K. It was a lot of money. And so I'd never forget, I got a call on my cell phone from their guy. I said, Brad, I got great news for you. I got approval to give you the money. He said, can you do this? Will you do this? So here this massive multi-billion-dollar company is calling up this little podunk company in North Alabama, begging us to integrate their product into our system. So we did. We launched on this effort. It was not really a huge effort because Unreal Engine is very open, very customizable. Flames is designed to have stuff plugged into it. That's what we do. So I knew immediately this needs to go here, this needs to go here, this needs to go here. So we built those interfaces. It wasn't just a massive effort. And now they are very tightly integrated. So for those of you who may not know about Unreal Engine, it is a platform for building games. And it has just an amazing game editor for building 3D content. In our world, we always have to worry about how do we build terrain databases. That's a big issue. Unreal Engine has this wonderful terrain database building capability. So I've worked with a lot of terrain database generation tools in the past. I've never seen anything like this one. And as I'm going to mention a couple other places, one of the great things about Unreal Engine, they have this huge community. There are people building things that plug into Unreal Engine for years. And if you decide to use an Unreal Engine-based solution, you get all this stuff that's available, including plugins for all different kinds of terrain formats. You maybe have heard of Cesium, which is this terrain database for the entire world through a terrain database server. There's a Cesium plugin for Unreal Engine. I mean, it's just amazing the kind of resources that are available if you use that. So it's incredibly capable. And when you integrate Unreal Engine with Flames, Flames being an extremely capable simulation framework, we get what we're saying is the ultimate framework for the creation of serious games. You probably have heard that buzzword before. It's here at ITSEC. It's this thing about a serious game. And what they mean by that is, we all know that games are just cartoons. They're really cool looking cartoons, and the things move in this cartoon world really nicely, but that's all they really do is move. There's no sensors, there's no command and control, there's no electronic warfare, there's no weapon systems, there's no communication modeling going on, there's no missions being executed. It's just really nice looking cartoons. But in our industry, we've been hungry forever for high-end 3D graphics. We want to be able to, our battles take place in 3 dimensions in color. We want to be able to see battles in our simulation in 3 dimensions in color. So it used to be that the coolest looking 3D graphics that was being developed was, a lot of it was being developed for the defense industry. Just like a lot of other technology, defense industry was leading the way. They had the deep pockets, they had the money to be able to build some of the latest, greatest technology. Well, there's a lot of technology fields now that defense industries are no longer the leaders because there's a commercial appetite for this sort of technology. And when the commercial world gets interested in technology, usually a lot more money is available. And so this 3D graphics now, what's taken off is gaming. And they have a greater appetite for 3D graphics than even departments of defense have. And they have lots of money. You know, billions and billions and billions of dollars every year get spent on money. I think Epic Games is a $24 billion company. You know, they've got, I think one of their most difficult places is where do they store all their cash. I mean, it's just raining in from the sky because there's a lot of people that play games. And that money fuels the development of their products, and that's why they are now light years ahead in their rendering capability than most people who develop capabilities for the DoD world. And that's why a lot of people now are looking at Unreal Engine and saying, boy, could we, and other game engines, they're not the only game in town, but I say they're the leaders, but there's Unity and some other products as well. How can we get this kind of 3D capability now and use it? I heard about a general, in fact he was quoted in last year's ITSEC, said, I look at my grandson in my living room playing this game and I see the graphics and say, I need that in my simulation. But it's just a cartoon. So we say, well, we need a serious game. We need one that does weapon systems and electronic warfare and all that kind of stuff. So how do we take that gaming technology and use it for a simulation? If you try to build a serious simulation inside of Unreal Engine, as good as it is, it's gut-wrenching to do that in Unreal Engine. It's not designed to do that at all. It doesn't have any support for electronic warfare or for sensors or communication devices. It has nothing in there for that. And people know it's a big stretch to take that gaming technology and do all the things that we're used to doing in the constructive simulation world. So how do you do that? So they're saying that we're working on it. There's one big simulation project. Renee just went to this conference and she learned about this one heavily used DoD simulation. You guys would know if I told you its name. And the program manager gave a briefing. They said our #1 priority for the enhancement of this product is gamification. In other words, how to integrate gaming technology into our simulation, because we need that. There's benefits to that. Well, we have crushed it. We have absolutely crushed it, again, in my own humble and unbiased opinion. And it's not available yet, but it's running enough. And the reason it's not available is we don't have all the documentation, all the tutorials and everything ready to be able to teach other people how to do what we've done. So we've got to put polish on it and a wrapper on it, make it a product. But it works, and it works really well, and it's in our booth, and we're demonstrating it here at ITSEC, and it's really cool. Somebody walked by our booth yesterday, and every booth in this show has beautiful graphics going on. It's just an eye candy everywhere. You went by Ternion's booth, you never saw that level of graphics. We had the best graphics that we had, but it was embarrassing, honestly, compared to what other people around us were doing, but it was the best that we had. And we made the decision at Ternion, we're not going to develop 3D graphics capability ourselves from scratch. We're going to get that from somebody else. We had a rudimentary, relatively speaking, rudimentary capability. We're going to develop that. And we looked at
at least half a dozen other third-party solutions, and we never found one that worked because we needed to not have just the rendering, we need to have the 3D world be our world. So we'd go to one of these other organizations that had a high-end 3D and say, how can I call you and get terrain information so I can move my units in your terrain? So I don't have a terrain database correlation issue. Nobody has ever solved that problem for us. And we've talked to every major terrain database vendor and rendering system that there is. Nobody has that. Unreal Engine has it. Last year, they made a version of Unreal Engine that you could integrate into another application and call it as a library. And that changed everything. So now we have it directly integrated into Flames. So let me tell you a little bit about it. Just real quickly about Unreal Engine, great content entry, mind-blowing graphics. It's just beautiful. You know, the trees with leaves and shadows and smoke and sound and everything. It's I don't know if it's the best that there is in the world, but it's really, really good. And it's really good, really better than most DoD simulations and tools that are out there. They're just way out, again, because they've got so much money fueling their R&D. It's free. It's a free and open, and there's tons of content available. So you're not starting from scratch. You just have tons and tons and tons of stuff that's available. So they've got an online store with all this stuff in it. Flames, on the other hand, 3D graphics has not been our strength, but doing serious stuff has been our strength. We are experts at our framework is expert capability, tremendously capable for doing this kind of stuff, the stuff that makes it serious. We have a very powerful scenario editor. Unreal Engine doesn't really have a scenario editor. They have the terrain database building environment. You hit play and it crunches and it builds a runtime version of that. If you want to move a player 2 inches, you have to rebuild everything. So it's not really designed to edit a scenario. With Flames, now you can build a 3D world in Unreal Engine and then edit it with our scenario, which doesn't require our scenario editor doesn't require any building at all. And it's the best of both worlds. It gives you the full ability to put players in the 3D world generated by Unreal Engine. So those are views that are straight inside our scenario editor. That is Unreal Engine running inside of our products. So serious simulation capabilities merged with state-of-the-art graphics, and it's the best of both worlds. And like Unreal Engine, we have a free and open modeling environment as well. So when you get Flames, you not only can get Flames with its free development, you can get Unreal Engine with its free development. So you've got this incredible simulation, custom simulation development with the best graphics, one of the best, certainly, graphics in the world, all integrated into Flames. And for us, it's not just a viewer. You'll see other people that are using Unreal Engine just as a viewer. We're not just a viewer. We have Unreal Engine integrated directly into our application. And we're doing movement of players with the movement capability that you have in Unreal Engine. We're using that to move the players in Flames. It's very, very tightly integrated. So you can take any Unreal Engine game, put Flames interfaces on it, you can bring it in and put it inside of a Flames scenario. Again, it's all for free. Anything you create in Flames is in the Unreal world. Anything that's in the Unreal world is in Flames. They're a very tightly integrated world. So you get the full power of, as I've already mentioned, of all the things that they can do well and all the things that we do well. In general, what we've learned is we use Unreal Engine to model the motion of things that are on the ground, because they are really good at that. So you go look at our scenarios. You've got individual human players walking around. You've got ground vehicles bouncing over the rocks. That's what they do really well. We've never done that in Flames because it's really hard. In particular, having real detailed interaction with a very complicated world, very complicated terrain. It's very, very hard to do that. Unreal Engine crushes that. They're just so good at that. So we use their platform motion modeling for ground systems. Air stuff is not so easy to do in Unreal Engine. We do that very well. So we model all the air, the things that move in the air, helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft and missiles and those kinds of things. We do those things in Flames. And you can choose. You can pick and choose, because whatever you do in one exists in the other. And it's all very tightly coupled. And of course, you visualize it directly in Flames. It's not a separate process that we have some kind of network communication to. It's directly part of Flames. It's right there in Forge, our scenario editor. You see, you move a guy and it moves immediately in the 3D world. You can imagine, I'm just excited. We've been trying to have high-end 3D graphics, and again, we said we're just not going to build that ourselves. This is what we've been waiting for. It's taken all this time, and they just released it last year. This is the thing. So suddenly, this product that we had that was paled in comparison to other products in our 3D graphics capability. We now have better 3D rendering capability than pretty much anybody out there. We've leapfrogged them now and have better 3D modeling and graphics capability than any other product out there because of Unreal. There is no terrain database correlation issue. We don't have another copy of the terrain that we use in Flames. The Unreal Engine world is our terrain. It's fully integrated with Flames. Again, Flames is designed to plug stuff in. And so we had a place where we plug in terrain models. We've got 6 or 7 different terrain models that we built for Flames. We just put another one in there. We just put our terrain model class over the top of the Unreal Engine API, and now Unreal Engine supports all the terrain calls. So it's, again, terrain correlation issues just go away. You build the terrain once and it's all the same. A couple other extra things. We are used to connecting virtual simulators to constructive sims with DIS and HLA, and there's, of course, still a place for this. The way that Unreal connects clients and servers together is way more capable than anything we can do in DIS and HLA. It comes for free. They live in the multiplayer game world, and you now can connect virtual simulators. You can build the virtual simulators with the graphics of Unreal Engine and have it connect to Flames, and it works. We can demonstrate that today. It is so cool to see that. We could still use DIS and HLA, and if you plug up a DIS simulation, a legacy sim, and you want to talk to Flames, if it talks to Flames, your DIS entities are going to show up in Unreal. So you don't need to worry about the Unreal Engine DIS and HLA plugins. They have them, but if you use Flames, you get that. It's just built in because Flames can already talk to DIS other simulations using DIS, and it automatically shows up in Unreal. One important point, this is implemented as a plugin to Flames. So without this plugin, we have no connection to Unreal Engine. We have no dependency on Unreal Engine. So Flames is still everything that it always was for all of our existing customers, unchanged. Flames has this amazing plugin architecture, and you use that plugin, and all of a sudden Unreal Engine has just got its fingers all up inside of Flames, and it is fully integrated. Well, let me just take the last couple of minutes to tell you about our booth. We are located in booth 2008, which is right near the front, and we're actually right across the hall from the Unreal Engine, from the Epic Games booth, because we're showing their stuff in our booth, and they're showing our stuff in their booth. They're showing a bunch of stuff in their booth, so we don't get very much of their time. We're going to be demonstrating. We have Flames version 21, which is the newest version of Flames, is there. We're demonstrating the Unreal Engine option. Like I said, all of our screens are showing screens that we're generating with Unreal Engine. We have, as I mentioned already, a copy of parts of the Command and Control Weapon System Part Test Trainer, and the Program Manager, Contractor Program Manager for that is here to be able to explain that to you. And then we've got an area, if you want to sign up to spend some time with somebody from Ternion to get more detailed information about Flames or anything that I've been talking about here this morning, you're welcome to do that. We can sit down and relax, get off your feet, and we can have an in-depth discussion about things. So the best way to find out about Flames, get on our flamesframework.com, hit download now, and in a few minutes it'll be on your machine with all the documentation, demo scenarios, you'll be ready to go. Come by our booth if you want to make sure we're there, set up a time to meet with us. And I'll be here for a few minutes after this breakfast to be able to answer any questions if anybody wants to talk to me now. Thank you very much for coming. Hope you have a great day, a great time in Orlando, and I hope that I'll see you as downloading Flames here in the next couple of days. Thanks for coming.